I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes. I'm delighted to be able to chat to an artist today who's just released her sophomore album, Deep is the Way. The title track, written and performed with Bill Callahan, will attract lots of attention, and rightly so, because it's truly a beautiful piece of work. But the entire 11 tracks on the album are absolutely sublime. There's for me, there's this kind of beauty and curiosity within this tension, and it makes me feel like I want to go back to somewhere that I've never been to. If that makes sense. Makes me kind of think of landscapes of long road trips where you can just be at one with your thoughts by really just immersing yourself. And what I really love is the entire record demands patience, and something that's a pretty scarce resource these days. Anyway, enough of my self-indulgent twaddle, and here's Gena Rose Bruce. Gena, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Giles. It's a pleasure, honestly.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So second album after the first one. If we talk about the record for a minute before we go into the kind of mindset stuff. But yeah, the new record after 2019's debut must have felt really good to kind of get that out, to
Absolutely.
say
I
the
was
least.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been sitting on this record for a while, so
Yeah,
I was truly ready to get it out there.
to get it out. Yeah, and
Mhm.
and I believe you're coming over to the UK as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's correct.
In May, isn't it?
May.
I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll be there for about 6 months, so I'm
Yeah.
really excited.
Wow, exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
the record for me, it feels like it's kind of written in the present tense, but in lots of ways. Then it sort of feels like kind of the past is part of the present, if that sort of makes sense. It's like
Yeah, it
it's
does.
like it's like this kind of like story sort of unfolding in front of me.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of, like, reflection, but I think that sort of past carries on to kind of dealing with that helps me move forward. So it's
Mm,
kind of I need, yeah, that to go back into my mind about everything in order to feel, yeah, present in the moment. Because if you
mm.
haven't been dealing with stuff, you're not really present. You're just kind of going about your life without actually being there.
Yeah, I think it's been kind of well documented that the you kind of like through COVID and sort of lockdown, the events that were sort of happening to you were, it's pretty much sort of formed this kind of record. I mean, how are you feeling now that that the sort of the record is out?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely, in terms of, like, my emotional state and, like, my mental health when I was writing that,
Mm,
I'm definitely in a different place now, and I feel, yeah, I can kind of see the whole picture of things and, you know, like everyone, I think we all can in a way,
mm,
have sort of made sense as much as we can about,
yeah.
those years and,
Mm,
yeah, so I'm definitely at peace with everything and, I'm really thankful that I can write as, like, a way to kind of process everything. It's really
yeah.
important.
It's good to have that sort of therapy. I mean, I think it's a weird thing, isn't it? I think a lot of people have probably sort of quite rightly, maybe myself included, tried to you know forget about it, because it's and everybody's handled it differently, haven't they? Everyone's had
Yeah.
their own sort of experiences. Some have liked, well, it was just like this sort of big switch off. It's what I've been needing. And then, for me, for example, I had like sort of issues with my parents. I lost both my parents last year, and then through COVID, it was
I'm so
like
sorry.
it's really tough. Like my like with sort of illness, and so then they caught COVID. They're elderly, and it's just that's part of it that I want to forget. And then there's other parts of me that says, well, I actually kind of switched off, and then you know didn't do very much. And then there's other part of it that was like, what is going to happen? It was just like this weird, strange set of
Totally.
emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And even now, I think when you look back, yeah, like some days you look back fondly, and other days you're like, oh, that was really, really hard, and or you're
Yeah.
really angry about like the time as well. And
Mm.
yeah, I think just, or we're probably going to be processing it for our whole life,
For a
really.
whole long
Yeah,
time, yeah. I
yeah,
sp I suppose we should say, it's kind of like giving us some tools to, to be able to handle it if something else comes around again, like
totally.
sort of
We're
zombie
ready.
apocalypse or something.
Yeah.
So it's totally ready.
Nothing shocks us now. Oh man.
Sort of I mean, kind of going back to, to your childhood when you were sort of growing up, as a real sort of kid, I mean, what were your kind of what are your kind of like main memories of of how what kind of influenced you as you were growing up?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I come from like a ratherly big family. So
Mm,
one of four children, and we're all pretty close in age. So
yeah.
a lot of my time, yeah, is like memories of just really just hanging out with my brothers and sisters and like my family. We were all, pretty close at the time, and like we were fine, but we didn't have a lot of money, so I think it was a lot of
Mm,
creativity as well with like just go outside and make things happen. And so I think, yeah, I've always got that sort of that really shaped me, I think, in terms of connections and being able to really like keep myself busy and probably be
mm,
creative, because I think I was dreaming a lot of the time. I remember we would go to the beach for like hours, and I would just be out
mm.
in the water just dreaming, like
Wow.
thinking songs. And like I still do that now, but I think, yeah, I had a lot of time to think. And yeah, that's probably like one of my strongest kind of memories, is just that side of childhood.
Mm,
And then high school, I did never really liked school. I wasn't someone who really took well to that kind of learning, and so I kind of
mm,
struggled, especially in my later years. So
mm,
that was a bit more of a lonely time, I think, and just
mm.
like as well, like I moved schools, so didn't have as many friends in my kind of last school I went to. So
So there's a
yeah, I
bit of
think that,
disruption there.
yeah, totally. And I
Mm,
think
mm,
that was kind of hard. And yeah, I think I've always kind of longed for that solid friend group, but which I never really got to experience, I think. But
mm.
yeah, which is, you know, as you get older, you learn that it doesn't matter about how
Yeah.
many friends you have, it's the little friends you have and the connections with them. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
funny, isn't it? But I remember like when I was a kid, and yeah, that sort of stuff, having a group of friends was, yeah, it was kind of like important, and you're kind of part of a gang, so to speak. And I remember that
totally.
when I went to kind of high school, I was sort of split up from most of my friends who lived around and about, and I that was kind of hard, so I started getting home late, getting home after they'd already got home. They'd done their thing together and after school,
Yeah,
and then I felt left out and all that. And
totally.
it's weird, like sort of thinking back still now, I still remember that sort of stuff. I still
Yeah,
remember it.
it stays with you because you kind of
Mm,
always felt like you're on the outside, like you never
mm,
really in the group, you
mm.
know? And it wasn't like, you know, anyone was necessarily really mean to me, but it was like more just like you were forgotten about, I think.
Yes,
That's
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I guess at that age, yeah, that's kind of kids move on sort of quite quickly, don't they? And
Totally, absolutely.
was your family a kind of creative family? Were they in the arts?
Yeah, totally. My parents
Mm,
are like big music fans,
mm,
like writing, reading. With always, ever since I remember going to the library pretty much most weeks and
yeah.
hanging out there a lot as well. Yeah, art was always encouraged, definitely. It was never like encouraged to be like, you can make a living off this, but it was
Mm.
more like definitely have it in your life always. Yeah.
Did they have and then there's a reason I'm kind of asking this, but did they have a kind of career in mind for you, or did they sort of encourage you in certain directions?
No, but I think they were, I come from a bit more of like a working class kind of background, so I think it was
Mm,
more like just get a job straight away, whatever you can get, and like I
yeah.
started working in the supermarket since I was like
Mm,
15.
mm,
Um, so it's always been more like it's just not that no one could have a creative career, but I don't really know anyone in my family who's ever had a
mm,
career in a yeah, like a creative kind of way. It just
mm,
wasn't. I don't know. Yeah, we just never. I just don't know anyone personally when I was growing up who
mm.
had a career like that. So what didn't seem like an option.
And I mean, were you, was there a time when you sort of became, kind of like almost like a light bulb moment? It's like, okay, this, kind of music is for me. This is my calling.
Yeah, I think like all throughout my life, I've had a real like deep attachment with music and
Mm,
songwriting just really just came like natural to me. And it just was like that's what you do. And
mm,
um, it always felt like it was like something quite deeper and with me. But I think it wasn't until my later years where I was like, oh, like I can actually maybe do this,
mm.
for real. Um, but even now, it's still like I'm doing it, but there's always that back of my mind, like always need backup plans, need other jobs, because it's still, which
Yeah.
is it's true, like it is a hard career.
I guess
um,
that's a kind of, a kind of protective brain, isn't it? Kind of thinking of, okay, we need to kind of try and protect ourselves. So what's the, kind of what's the
totally.
plan if something goes wrong and all that sort of stuff. And it can throw a load of nonsense into your head, can't it? That just
So much, yeah,
distracts you from, kind of what your real love is.
totally. And I think, yeah, it distracts you as well because you kind of don't want to plan for failure, and which
Mm,
I think is not like a real kind of healthy way to go about things.
yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
yeah, like sometimes you will fail, but I think if you've always got these backup plans, you're not really allowing yourself to fully kind of give it
Mm.
everything. I think mentally, it's like, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
weird thing, isn't it? Because like when I was I think when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, like my dad was. I mean, he was like by trade, he was a mechanical engineer. That was his sort of trade, and he sort of came from a family that had nothing, and he educated himself, and he did well. He got a professional qualification in that.
Yeah,
So for him, having a secure job was something that he really valued, and he sort of tried to pass that on to me. So he encouraged me to, to study and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. But on the side, I had music. I played the cello when I was a kid. And he sung in a choir, and he played the piano and stuff like that. So we always did that. But he really wanted me to do that, but I don't think from a career point of view. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But so
yeah,
it was a weird sort of thing. He was trying to get me to sort of practice. Yeah, it was like, okay, I don't think music is a kind of career, so you need to do this professional thing and all that.
totally. It's like a safety, like, and
Yeah.
I looking like sometimes I think if I had a child, what would I be like? Like, would I?
Mm,
And I would 100% encourage them to be creative, but I think I do admire the fact that it is good, yeah, to have, I guess, you know, a realistic version of what it is you are
mm,
trying to achieve, and I think it is important, well, I guess in general to do lots of things with your life and not maybe
mm.
one thing, but yeah, I don't know, I
It's
keep changing my mind.
No, no, no. So in one of my sort of earlier podcasts, I had a chat with Martin Atkins, and he was the one of the drummers in Public Image,
Mhm,
and he was also in kind of bands like he did some tracks with Nine Inch Nails and Killing
mm,
Joke as well. And what he did, he's now a lecturer
mm,
at a university in Chicago. He teaches basically the business of music. And basically what he said is, he said, I've learned so much, about the music industry and about myself, that now I want to. I kind of feel that I've learned these skills, and I've got these skills to be able to sort of teach others about them. I mean, I think he's maybe probably around about 60 years old now. He still does bits of music, but basically it's kind of like music has been his career, but now he's using the skills that he's learned through that to do other things,
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool.
which I think
Definitely.
is a really sort of interesting way. You sort of, I guess, I'm thinking, the music business, you learn a lot about yourself
You
and
learn a lot.
other kind of
Yeah,
things.
yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, I think it's one of those, yeah, industries where, yeah, you do have a lot of, yeah, a lot of the time your hands are in a lot of parts of the industry, so
Mm.
yeah, definitely, yeah, that's
I mean, are
interesting.
you sort of pretty much sort of DIY? Kind of like do lots of things about your career yourself.
Yeah, totally. I think it's something that's important to me to kind of be
Mm.
across all aspects. There's definitely things where I'm like, I don't wanna know, just you sort it out. Um, but, yeah, definitely, like, I love especially, like, the whole creative process is really important, but I also wanna be really kind of in charge of, like, my own business in a sense. I think
Mm.
that's a really important thing to be in control of. I think just you should know where your money's going and, like,
Yeah,
how you spend it, like, it's just kind of empowering too, I think, to know that. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, there've been
Mm.
so many horror stories over the years of kind of artists that haven't done that.
No,
And I
yeah,
think now almost like the default is to to be the opposite, to know absolutely what's going on, and to be
totally.
kind of
To
like if
know
you're
it
not doing the day to day, but you know what's going on.
exactly, and not like, definitely, like, ask people for help and get those, expert help where you can, but just to have, yeah, at least, like, some sort of knowledge into, like,
Mm.
especially, like, contracts and stuff, like, that's just
Yeah.
before I didn't wanna look at that, but now I'm like, I need to know everything, like, I sit down with someone who knows that stuff so they can kind of just talk me through it, and, like, half of it I don't really understand, but I really
Yeah.
want to make an effort to, like, have a little bit of an understanding.
This is where it's important to kind of have people around you that that you trust, um,
Absolutely.
and that you feel that have got your best interests at heart when it comes to this sort of stuff. Because if we're living so much longer these days as well, it's signing the wrong contract now can just have such a long term impact.
Totally, totally. I think it's something, yeah, I'm really lucky. I feel like I do have a lot of good people around me
Mm.
mm, and yeah, and I think I've learned as well to really ask for help a lot as
Yeah.
well, and that's really important, um, because a lot of people, yeah, really do want the best for you and they really can help you and you shouldn't be expected to know everything, but it's
Mm.
important to ask, yeah.
Do you find it easy to ask for help with other people?
Um, I do now. I definitely struggled with it before, but I think,
Mm.
yeah, I completely changed my look on asking for help. I think it's something I don't think you can give help without asking for help. I think it
Mm.
comes together. Yeah.
So when you go back to when you were sort of starting out, and
Mm.
if you're saying that you didn't really sort of know anybody else with a kind of music career, did that how did that sort of impact your mindset? I mean, did it give you kind of strength of self belief, or been times when you've doubted yourself?
I think it my expectations of what necessarily like the reality of a career, like it
Mm.
that in just music, for example, I feel like I really didn't know what to expect, and I had maybe really quite off expectations. So I think
Mm.
it wasn't until I've really kind of done it myself, I've learned actually what goes into it,
Yeah.
especially with day-to-day things. And yeah, that's definitely yeah, that took a while for me to kind of come to terms with, and also just had to ask myself, oh, okay, actually, do I want to do this? Because there's a lot of stuff involved.
Mm.
Um, if you want it to be more than a hobby.
Mm.
Um, But yeah, I think it's been nice because like the path hasn't been clear for me in a way. So I have had to kind of figure it out on my own. And,
Mm,
I think at the start, I was taking a lot of advice from people who weren't so helpful or didn't really know the experience of it. So I think
mm.
I'm really kind of careful with what advice I take in because I think I don't know if you find this, like, when you have a creative kind of job, everyone has an opinion about it in some
Always got an
like,
opinion. Yeah.
always, and it's from the best place, I know, but it's yeah, especially if it's people you're close to, you've gotta really kind of protect yourself to not
Mm,
necessarily take that all in because I think that can be really frustrating because then you doubt yourself and then you're like, "Hang on, I'm the one here, I'm the one doing it.
mm.
My experience is, valid."
I mean, that must take. I totally understand you. I completely hear you with that. I mean, I think y- maybe creative arts more so. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but creative arts more so than everybody else because anything else because it's kind of that perception of whether it's sort of painting, sculpture, music. It's very personal, isn't it? It's a sort of personal relationship with that piece of work, and everybody has a different opinion on it. And that I think feeds through into the opinions that people give you about it, about how to do a career in it. And it takes
Mm,
I would guess I mean, yeah, I've had times when a lot of times when kind of I've listened to other people and it's like this sort of like morass of information that comes in and it's just like
yeah.
fuck, I don't know what to do with it all. I can't
Yeah,
process it
totally.
all.
You
It takes
doubt
a lot.
yourself.
It takes a lot of kind of self conviction, I found, to ignore that and follow almost like which is an interesting point now, is which is around kind of like your gut instinct and what you trust, and how much you trust that because you know sometimes you need that, I
Totally.
guess.
Yeah, you do, and I think you definitely learn to, like I think it's just about having in your mind, like, an order of whose opinion you take in the most, and,
Mm,
like, you really should put your own opinion first, and especially when it comes to art. Um, but yeah, I think I feel lucky in the sense that I have been someone who's always had quite strong, like, gut
mm,
feelings.
yeah,
Yeah, I definitely feel connected to when I know something is right or wrong. Yeah, there is that. I like. How do you explain a gut feeling? It's just something like an inner
yeah.
pull, a direction. Yeah, where you just know. So yeah, I feel very in tune with my gut in that when it
I
comes
remember
to kind of.
I did a master's degree a few years ago, and as part of it, I say a few, it was about 6 years ago now. And as part of it, it was about gut instinct. We were learning something about behavioural behaviours, and gut instinct was part of it. And there was a study that had been done on these financial traders, and they monitored their kind of heart, and it was about kind of like these sort of very um, kind of quick decisions that these traders have to make as whether kind of buy and sell stocks, and they and
Yeah,
they basically kind of like established that. Um, sort of relationship between gut instinct and actually sort of physically doing it, and there's definitely something there, that gut instinct is a valid,
yeah.
kind of I suppose kind of input into decisions that you make. And it's hard to explain, but it just comes and then you make a decision.
No, yeah. Well, isn't it like the guts? Like, don't they say it's kind of like your second brain? Like, it has
Mm,
like the sort of I don't know science
yeah,
words, but yeah, something.
it's definitely. I've always had this. I guess this tendency to analyze things as well, which is kind of complete contradiction to your gut instinct. And sometimes I'm like, okay, which one's going to win win out this
Yeah,
time?
totally. You're like, "All right, battle it out." Yeah,
Yes,
but it's good
somebody
to
come
have
back to
both.
me when
Like
you make a decision.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Leave me out of
Um,
it.
yeah. So, I mean, from what do you think like you've really learnt about yourself, in the past, I don't know, however long
I
in
think,
in the industry, I guess.
yeah, I think I've definitely learnt that I'm quite resilient. I think I really trust that now within myself that no matter what happens in terms of, you know, music, I guess, like, I'll be okay, and I will
Mm,
keep making music. Like, it really, that sort of success doesn't determine whether I'm gonna make music or not. So I'm definitely really connecting more with songwriting in more of like a spiritual sense. I think it's like it's
mm,
just something I'll always do. Of course, I want it to be successful. I want people to like my music. Who doesn't? But it's definitely not going to be what determines whether, yeah, I keep doing it or not. So I think that's really like really made me more at ease with things because yeah, because of things in the past where I like, yeah, I've had maybe, you know, professional failures and but managed to keep going
mm.
and I think, yeah, I've been through that. I can do it again. So that's, yeah, reassuring of my intentions, I guess.
I think you've in some way either redefined what what success means to you, or it's kind of like reaffirmed what it means to you.
I think it's more oh, yeah, that I think maybe reaffirm because I constantly am going back to redefine like what success means to me because it does change.
Mm,
But yeah, I think in a bigger picture, it's really made me realize what I value
mm.
um in what like why I'm doing what I do, what it is that I value in what I do, kind of. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm interested because I've faced sort of similar things. I think. How
Mm.
did you, or how do you kind of reevaluate what it means to you, and how have you got to the position that you're in now, or is it literally just kind of like instinct?
No, I think there's a lot of kind of, you know, I think a lot and
Mm,
reflect a lot and, make time to either like journal, write, or, like meditate in some way. And I
mm,
think, yeah, so I think a lot, yeah, like a lot of it has come from reflection. Yeah, I think that I definitely make an effort to kind of process what it is
mm,
I'm feeling so that I make sure that I get out of it. I'm not someone to just kind of shut it down and move on. So
mm.
I think being able to kind of process what it is I'm feeling has made me, yeah, keep going.
You said that you're quite spiritual. What's your relationship with like with nature, for example?
Yeah, really like have a very strong connection with nature. My other work is I'm a gardener, so I'm constantly
Mm,
outside dealing
right.
with growing and
Oh,
everything.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
I honestly like my favorite thing to do is to just go out at night and just like look at the sky. Like I just feel like
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
is just so, yeah, there's something really powerful. And it's same with the ocean. Like I feel really kind of connected to that. And if I was to believe in kind of anything, it's definitely that force of nature and those big open spaces is what really brings out emotion for me and clarity as well. So I live near the beach now, but I'm someone who always kind of needs to be
Mm,
near water as well. I feel like that really, yeah, I feel like I just can process things. And I don't know, I believe in um like I love something about stars as well. And clouds and
mm.
yeah, there's definitely like nature's like moving. I don't know. Yeah, I can just sit and stare at a tree for hours.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think I'm the same. I think we did this about I think it was probably during um 2020. So it's probably during when kind of COVID started, with all the lockdowns and stuff. I know,
Yeah.
Melbourne had it particularly harsh. When we were allowed out, that was when it kind of started. Like it really sort of started looking at this old that Japanese tradition, forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku. It's basically,
I
yeah,
know.
it's incredible. It's basically Shinrin-yoku basically translates as bathing in the forest, and it means that they sort of Japanese people go into the forest and just immerse themselves in the forest and just either just sort of sit amongst the trees and just absorb the kind of the power. It can just be walking, you can be sitting,
Wow.
lying
Yeah,
on your back, and it's real. There's really something in it, just that kind of power. I always thought that, and I thought, you sit at the base of a tree, something really kind of connective about it. It's incredible.
really. And I think as well because I find something amazing, like how old trees are. Like you're
Mm,
sitting like,
yeah,
100 years old, and there's some real sort of like they've seen so much life, and
yeah,
yeah, they're alive. Like they're just in
yeah.
a different life to like body or whatever you want to call it to us, but there's
Mm.
like life. So yeah, it makes
It's
sense to connect.
it's Yeah, there's really I kind of like and it's hard to kind of explain, but you sort of come away from it feeling with it gives you that chance to think, and then come away from it feeling a lot clearer in your brain. Like I was reading that sort of like an educator at the or a kind of thought leader at the Institute of the Future, and she was saying like
Mhm.
one of the most important things that we need these days is critical ignoring. So it's the ability to critically ignore basically lots of the bullshit that's around us, just
Yeah, wow.
and go through to the the stuff that is important and that needs attention. And I find that like that by sitting amongst trees, you can kind of do that. It just sort of cuts through everything and just gives you some clarity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
And I was
I like
imagining it's the same with the stars as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just something I don't know, because it's yeah, and it's like my favorite thing to do as well, to go for like a walk without like a phone or somewhere, like and just be
Mm,
around
yeah.
like you just feel happy.
Totally, absolutely
Yeah.
right. It was interesting because I also listened to this to this podcast. It's Ezra Klein. He writes for the New York Times,
Mm.
and he has this. I think this is it's a great podcast. There's quite a lot of politics in, but it's also he brings in kind of other people, authors, Buddhist leaders, for example.
Mm.
And there's this guy Richard Powers who's an author, and um, he's written two books recently. I think one of them's called The Overstory, and it's basically this idea that um, our life is not our life. It's like we are life, and it's about how to connect. That we spend too much time distance from nature, like it's
Mhm.
almost nature and us. We're the kind of the superior thing, and that nature is here for us. Whereas his point is that we should be kind of at one, and think of
Absolutely.
ourselves as connected. Just the way
Yeah.
he described it, obviously, sort of far better than I did, but
No,
you know,
no, yeah, that's
really
beautiful.
made
Yeah,
sense.
definitely. Yeah, I think yeah, it's I just could never really understand how someone yeah, can't not kind of just see themselves above nature, because like
Mm,
yeah, that never kind of really makes sense to me. Like
doesn't make sense at all, does it? No.
yeah, no.
Anyway, I'm sure we've gone off at some sort of tangent, but
So, yeah,
tangents are okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
yeah, it's
It's
fine.
all about our mindset and
Oh,
how it works. It's all
I could
good.
talk about this for ages.
So, things like in your life around like
Mhm.
collaborations, for example. Obviously, on the latest record, there's a couple of collaborations there, and you've I think did you use the same producer as well, for
Yes.
example. So what do you do? I mean, kind of what do those sort of collaborations give to you?
I think, well, working with Tim, who's produced this album and my previous
Mm,
album, um, yeah, like I honestly like he's like the perfect like musical relationship we have. I think we
mm,
really bring something out in each other that, you know, as an individual we can't necessarily get to by ourselves.
Special. Yeah.
So yeah, so I think, and he seems to like, yeah, I think we're really clear about what we want to kind of achieve, and like it's like we have a lot of fun making the music. So I think
Mm,
when you're having fun, you just kind of try the most wildest things, and there's not really like this expectation of, you know, it's got to be like perfect, or like, you know, we don't have time to kind of figure it out. Like it always feels like we make sure there's a lot of time, um, that we're always having a lot of fun, and that, yeah, I think that really helps just bring something out that I don't know I have. And when I was working with Bill Callahan, who
mm,
we wrote 2 songs together, um, he was like really just pushed me as a songwriter, definitely. And
mm,
I think, like, he said something to me, like, to just keep going. Like, so even when you think a song is kind of finished, like, just for the sake of it, write another verse. Just keep adding until you're like, this
mm.
is ridiculous. I've had enough. Um, and because I guess I went back to all songs I kind of thought were finished, and I kept, you know, adding another verse or a bridge, and actually like ended up keeping those extra verses and stuff on the song.
Wow.
So yeah, I think, yeah, well, obviously he's such a profound songwriter.
Yeah.
So I did, yeah, learn a lot of maybe like discipline too, I guess, in terms of songwriting.
I mean,
Yeah, but
going
that was,
on. Sorry, no, carry on. No, go on.
oh no, I was just because that was a really interesting collaboration because we were never in the same room. It was like
Mm,
all online.
mm,
And again, I think that was really great too because I felt like we could be really honest with each other without having to kind of look at each other in the eye or be
it's
in the
true.
same
Yeah.
room. Yeah, so I feel
Mm,
like we got quite deep when we were discussing lyrics and, you know, quite vulnerable with what we were saying. And I think that, yeah, he was essentially like a pen pal, I think. And yeah, it felt like
yeah.
we really got somewhere emotional.
There's something in that for sure. I mean, would you say that you're an introvert?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Me too. And there's something in that about getting the right forum, I suppose, and the right sort of space to be honest and to know when it's safe to kind of let your vulnerabilities out and when you feel uncomfortable. And
Totally.
it's the meeting. Sometimes face to face is not always the easiest place
No,
to do that.
no, and especially I think as well because when you often meet face to face, you kind of have to have that personal connection too. Like you have to kind of go through that social awkwardness, and like sometimes it
Yeah,
can just distract you. Where this was like you're just words on the screen, and yeah, I
yeah.
think it was perfect for me.
How did I mean? I like the way that he sort of challenged you to write those extras and to kind of keep going. I mean, and I also love the way that you accepted that and took that on. How did you feel doing that? Did it make you feel uncomfortable doing that?
I definitely felt a bit like stressed. I think frustrated. I was like, oh, like really, but no, I really admire Bill, and you know, I've loved his work for years. So I feel like
Mm,
he's someone I'm gonna take on. Like we said before, I will take on his advice because he knows what he's
yeah,
talking about.
yeah. It's funny,
Yeah,
isn't it? I mean, sometimes it's I found if if I've done something, whatever it is, and then you show it to somebody and they say, "Well, what about this?" Or give you like really kind of suggestions that are from the best place, and sometimes it's like, "Ah,
yeah.
I have my idea of what it was. Now it's kind of being
I
changed." It's
know,
really it's kind of hard sometimes to to take those. They're not criticism; they're just kind of suggestions.
totally. Yeah,
And run
especially
with
when you
those.
like, because having something finished is the best feeling, and then when
Yeah.
someone says it's not finished, it's like, ah, gosh, you know? But it's, yeah, it is important. Like, I think you always do end up getting a better result when you kind of push yourself that little bit further out of your
Mm.
comfort zone.
Your comfort zone. I mean, yeah, I mean I mean that's the place where we grow, isn't it? And sort of getting out of that. I mean, it's it's kind of well documented. A lot of people talk about comfort zones and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's sometimes the hardest thing to do.
It is. Yeah, definitely. It's very it's yeah, it's uncomfortable and confronting and kind of tiring as well, just
Yeah.
like it's exhausting feeling like kind of like it's like so important to be out of your comfort zone because there's definitely times where I just haven't done it and I just stop feeling connected to what I'm doing. And I
Mm.
think every time you do step out, you reconnect with what you're doing. Yeah, it's like an opportunity to kind of connect again, really, and find that, yeah, kind of spark.
Do you think are there some kind of ideas that you're almost like sort of toying with that, but then kind of like I don't know either musically or in your life in general, you're thinking, no, I can't do that. No.
Mm, yeah, like there's always I'm like always wanting to like play different instruments. So I think that's something
Mm.
I'm always wanting to kind of try, and I never feel like I'm like, oh, I'm don't have enough time to learn that or something. But yeah, so I think I'm definitely more open to kind of just I picked up playing piano like only like 2 years ago. I was like, I'm gonna start taking lessons,
Mm.
um and like it is a little bit hard when you're like a little bit older and like having to learn something from scratch and your
Yeah,
pride. 'Cause, I feel like you get to an age where you just only do the things you're good at because it's
absolutely.
yeah, so it's definitely always a bit you have to kind of get rid of your pride and just keep going.
I think that's a really good point. About that sort of pride almost. As you get older, you think you've done everything.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know, maybe not. So, no, I can't
Yeah.
possibly do that. That's just not.
Yeah.
No, I
And
wouldn't
it's
try
also
that.
having that, like, expectation of, like, everything you have to do, you have to be really good at as well. Like, you
Yeah.
can be good at things and still enjoy it.
So that's an interesting one. I mean, how do you handle? I'm not saying there are kind of imperfections in what you do, of course, but kind of like how do you handle those that things that maybe don't go so well, or things that
Mm.
it's like, should I change that, or should I just kind of leave it?
Yeah, I definitely yeah, it's a lot of like we said, I have to process the whole thing and, like,
Mm,
why do I wanna change it? Is it because I genuinely wanna change things, or I'm getting overwhelmed, or I'm feeling insecure, or, like, what's it coming from?
mm,
Um, and I think, you know, I think I'm lucky that when I do like, if there's, like, a creative thing that I need to change or maybe make it a little bit better, I think it's good to have someone who really you can talk to about it
mm,
and kind
mm,
of just say it out loud because it never feels like that big of a deal once you kind of say it out loud. But when in your head you get kind of really angry, or I don't know,
mm.
you just yeah, I guess it's your pride kicks in and you don't want to do it. But once you kind of say it out loud, you're like, okay, maybe that does make sense.
Yeah, I guess in a way it's sort of trusting yourself, isn't it? That
Yeah,
that you can do it, and that even if there is that nobody's perfect, and you can work with that, and
totally.
actually, and then you start thinking. I suppose you go to the nth degree. What is perfection? When is it? Where does it end? So
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
let it go.
Totally. I think I always remember someone I don't know, I actually don't remember if someone told me this, but I feel like I've never been someone to want to admire perfection because I just don't think it's healthy. And I think
Mm,
I've really accepted that at times you just can't be a perfectionist. And I think, especially with something like a creative project, oh my gosh, like the song could always be better, or, you
yeah.
could have always done it. But I'd rather just put stuff out there than never having to actually put anything out there because it wasn't
Mm.
perfect. Yeah, I think yeah, I don't like the whole idolizing perfection.
Absolutely right. No, I completely agree. Where you finding your? I mean, I was going to say where you sort of finding your inspiration from, and what I mean is like your kind of curiosity. Does that sort of feed into kind of what you're writing about?
Yeah, I think, I'm quite a personal writer, so I feel like I'm like life in general, I feel like I've always been someone who's just really fascinated with life and humans and
Mm,
how humans live their life and stories, and I'm definitely very romantic. I love love and
mm,
everything that comes with it. So yeah, I think I'm just like fascinated with feelings and emotions really, and I think it's
mm,
something I'll always explore. So I have a lot of good friends that I talk deeply with, and that often inspires like songs and lyrics because
yeah.
I think, yeah, there's people's stories are really inspiring. Yeah, just being open to every experience, I guess.
And I think that's that sort of emotional intelligence is having that interest in other people, that are kind of like your own sort of self-awareness,
Mm,
kind of empathy with what other people are going through. I think that, that's kind of super important these days as well, and can from
totally.
a creative point of view, can obviously sort of form a lot of interesting um kind of conversations and feed
Yeah,
through into
that's a good
your
word. Yeah,
creativity.
definitely, definitely. I think because it is all just one big conversation. I think when like it's never about finding the answers. It's more just about processing it all and questioning it all.
So that's really interesting. So like a good friend of mine is Dave Barbarossa, who's he was drummer in Adam and the Ants and Bow Wow Wow, so back in the
Oh, yeah.
kind of sort of 80s, and he said he says to me, he says, remember, it's not the end of it, it's not the end product, it's the journey that that's the experience, and that,
That's
which feeds into totally what you
absolutely.
say.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. I think and that's something I've really learned to love in in terms of, you know, having ambition and goals and all that stuff. It's actually like the most the best part of it is actually the process of it all,
Yeah.
Like because there's something really magical about and no one can take that away from you either because that's just your journey. That's
Mm,
your life essentially, and yeah, I think it's more about trying to aim for like beautiful experiences rather than, you know, one sort of result or
mm.
something, like it's yeah.
Which is interesting. Again, it's sort of interesting. What you're saying there is what comes through in your music. And I think when I said in the intro that your album, your latest albums, and the first one as well, but particularly the last one, demands patience. As in, what I meant by that is you get the most out of it by being patient, sitting down and listening to it, and it's almost like that. Kind of not each individual song, but just that whole kind of journey through the album, and kind of like just enjoying that. And I think that that is what you've just said. That's what really sort of comes through.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's definitely something I really feel strongly about, I think. Yeah, especially with, like, the title track, I think that talks a lot about people who are really quite deep thinkers and kind of just, like, on it they don't know where they're going, essentially, and I
Mm,
think that's a really beautiful thing and that, you know, sometimes this world doesn't necessarily, like, admire people who don't know what they want. Like, we have to be really kind of confident and certain all the time, and I think that's
focused on this, yeah, I
yeah, and
totally
it's
agree.
like and that's just not like, that's where, like, dreaming is, like, one of the most beautiful things, to be able to just kind of think and not know and just kind of feel your way through it all. It's like I just think it's a really beautiful way to live your life.
That sounds like a really great place to finish, Gena.
Yeah.
That's superb. I mean, and obviously it's kind of getting late for you as well. But kind of talking about dreaming is really, yeah. I completely agree with you. I think that's something that we kind of lose as kids.
Yeah, yeah, we do.
Lose as adults. We have it when we're kids, and then maybe
Yeah,
lose it.
yeah,
Just
exactly. Yeah,
trying to grab it back. So.
yeah.
Well,
If you dream, you'll fall behind or whatever, some sort of, but it's like, no, like, keep dreaming.
keep dreaming. Keep dreaming.
Yeah.
Well, Gena, thank you so much. Thanks so much. It's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. Thanks so much for coming on, and it's really inspirational.
Oh, it's been really, honestly, lovely. Loved it.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode. In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show, and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.